Look, I just restarted it. And you see? Look.
Oof, that is not good. This here is another viewer's broken gaming PC, and as you just saw, it's having some pretty serious issues. This video was sent by the owner at my request. I wanted to make sure that the symptom was repeatable. Oftentimes, especially if we're talking about software, random blue screens of death, random errors that pop up on screen, or random restarts are not easily repeatable in an office setting like this. If you're talking about, let's say, a bad display cable or some issue with the monitor in question, I cannot account for those variables here, and so I didn't want to waste the owner's time. That's why we have this exceptional bit of evidence that you're looking at. And if you notice closer on the screen, you'll see at the bottom it says critical process died. And this could mean a number of things, especially in a blue screen setting. I don't think the system really progresses far enough to actually throw up a proper blue screen, but we clearly have some artifacting here, some issues with video signal to some extent that I think makes for a great candidate in the Fix or Flop playlist. But only time will tell if we can fix it. I hope you will stay with me.
Are you sitting on a gaming PC without an activated copy of Windows? Forget $100+ retail keys, instead snag an OEM Windows 11 key for a fraction of the price to unlock the full potential of the OS. Oh, and don't worry, they'll still remove those pesky activation watermarks. Just click the links below to get started today, and be sure to use our special offer code SKGS for a sweet discount on a variety of options including Windows 11 Pro, Home, and more.
Hello there, and welcome to Fix or Flop, a playlist where we attempt to fix broken computers free of charge. That's $0 for both labor and hardware if applicable, and that's thanks to your viewerships. We monetize through sites like YouTube on the back end, and that puts us in a position where we don't have to charge owners to even diag their systems. Anywhere else you go, for the most part, Geek Squad, even Micro Center, the Knowledge Bar, other places, mom and pop shops, almost all of them are gonna charge for a diag because it's their time, right? It's their labor. I don't blame them for doing that, but most of those places aren't in positions to be able to monetize through YouTube. So the fact that we have your support, the fact that you click these videos, it goes such a long way, and we've been able to help out, again, over 100 systems so far in the Central Florida area. Thank you so much. That goes without saying. If you have a broken computer and you'd like a chance to have it fixed for free here, be sure to submit a form linked in this video's description. Now, as for this rig, it is sporting an RX 6800 XT, which is no slouch of a graphics card, a 7700X, I believe, from AM5, and then a B650 motherboard and 32 gigs of G.Skill DDR5. It's housed in an oversized fractal case, and it looks like we are missing our rear I/O shield. Yes, you probably saw that in some of the B-roll already, as well as a couple of PCIe slot covers. Now, according to the description, again, the owner was troubleshooting himself, so I think this here, this fan is just kind of dangling between these towers, is a result of that. I don't think the system was running long-term like this. That would be a real shame if it was, so we'll fix that. That's a quick fix. But just inspecting this side of the build, everything looks pretty good. I don't see any obvious cables missing. Everything is wired in, connected, slotted correctly. So at least in terms of first impressions, all is well. But I imagine that will all change once we fire it up. So let me grab my portable monitor and we'll try for a first boot. Now, if what the owner says holds up, this system should fire up no problem. I think we're gonna run into our issues after we get a picture. So, okay, a bit of a delayed start there. Looks okay so far. And I am wired through the 6800 XT. Now, these 7700X CPUs do have integrated graphics, very bare bones, but it's nice that Ryzen does include them now. So what we can do to remove the graphics card as a variable is simply literally remove it and then connect straight into our motherboard HDMI port to run off of the IGP. So you can see Windows is loading. We do have our post, obviously. You can see the MSI Splash logo. Just waiting for that initialization. Come on. Okay, good sign. Let's just, let's see if we can get any sort of reaction here. Hello? Okay, this should be doing something. I feel like it's frozen already. Did it freeze already? Now, it did move us into the login screen this time around, and we do have a reaction on the keyboard. I have the owner's PIN. I'm going to enter that, and let's see how stable Windows actually is. Oh, was that something? I just let the camera roll just in case something like that popped up. I think it just restarted again. It's always right after it loads into Windows that it decides to reset over some error. That time I couldn't even read the error, and now we're in the diag environment because it's been forced to reset twice now. Now in a recovery environment, we might be able to restore some backed up older version of Windows. If you maybe like interrupted the install process of some update or whatever, you might be able to get around that by reverting back to an older version or just an older sort of like image of the operating system when it was stable. The next thing I'm gonna do after this is try to hop into the BIOS and see if it's stable there. And if it is, if temperatures, voltages, you know, frequencies and things like that look okay, then I would probably chalk this up to a Windows issue or maybe a drive issue, since in the BIOS, the drive isn't actually doing much other than just being detected. Now real quick, with the system essentially idling, I've got to say, it is extremely quiet. I can tell the owner has gone through and tweaked each of these fan curves. Most of these fans are PWM anyway, which should allow you to get your RPMs nice and low. I said I wasn't going to show this, but I can tell you this is not a great sign. We weren't able to restore to a previous version of Windows for some odd reason. Now, a few early indicators, some good signs. The motherboard and CPU temps look to be a-okay, at least at idle conditions. Also looks like Expo is enabled with 6,000 megatransfers per second, 36, 36, 36 timings, 96 casts. This could be our issue if this particular preset here isn't playing nicely with our DIMMs. What I might do is try booting in without Expo enabled at all to see if that fixes our stability problems. And as for storage, it looks like we have two drives, a WD SN5000 2 terabyte and a P5. I think this is the crucial SSD further down. So what I'm gonna do here is go to the settings tab and then save and exit, but instead of clicking discard changes or save changes, I'm going to click restore defaults. This is gonna essentially wipe the BIOS, give us a clean slate, then we'll restart and see if that changes anything. It would be a relief if this works out. That would mean we don't have to throw hardware at it or start swapping parts to narrow down an issue. Again, it's I would say probably 50-50 at this point, either a dead or dying drive. I don't think it's fully dead yet because we can load into Windows, but only temporarily, or we have some sort of software just conflict, a pretty serious one that keeps the OS from running stable. In which case, my solution would probably be just to wipe the drive completely. And again, the owner has reiterated the fact that he doesn't have anything sensitive here. So that's good. But it looks like, oh, okay. For some reason, my keyboard's not working. So let's type in his PIN and let's see if we can actually load into Windows this time. Oh, already. So that's a better start than we had before. Could this actually just be an Expo issue? So I've been running through a couple of installs. I want to run some burn-in tests just to check for long-term stability under extreme loads. But so far, everything has been hunky-dory. I haven't run into that random like lockup and reset issue we had before. The critical process died notification could have very well just been on account of those DIMMs running at a higher frequency, maybe tighter timings than they otherwise should. Let's see, we'll go ahead and run the firmark test. This will stress the graphics card. We'll check temperatures throughout as well, right? And then we will run Prime 95. So this one's gonna be a torture test for the CPU. It's running currently. So we expect temps on both the GPU and CPU to increase pretty dramatically over the next few minutes. I'm going to let it run as is. Don't worry about hotspot temps. Those are supposed to get a bit high. We're at 91, 92C right now. That's nothing to be worried about, especially for a 6000 XT. So we'll come back here in a few more minutes and see if things are still stable. Well, it's been over 20 minutes and the system is still very stable. I'll go ahead and just kind of move some windows around so you can see. Doing this inverted is very jarring. There we go. Everything looks good. The CPU is still pegged at 4.4 gigahertz. Not sure if that's all core or not, but the utilization is still very high. I don't see it thermal throttling. And same goes for our GPU. Now so the GPU itself, those temps are 74 degrees and the hotspot is 93C. So I think we have a stable system again. That said, we need to do our due diligence, see this through, because the owner mentioned, especially in person, the fact that this problem would pop up once he restarted his rig. Now, for some reason that didn't happen this time after we reloaded from the BIOS, but I want to go ahead and just try forcing the issue once or twice more before we give this back. It'd be pretty cool if this was all it took to fix the problem. So we're just gonna pop down here. We're gonna click power restart. And let's see what happens. And in case you were curious, a bit of extra info. You can see our debug LEDs on the side of this board. Everything cycles fine here. There's no indication that anything else hardware-wise, at least primary components, is bad. So here we go, back on the splash page. I'm gonna go ahead and log in with the owner's PIN. Make sure that everything loads here. Looks like we're having a problem with the Explorer. Come on. Load these icons. Not sure why it's blank. That's really weird. If this ever happens to you, just swing down to Windows Explorer and then click Restart Task. That should reset our entire desktop. But it hasn't. What the heck is going on? Oh, okay. Was that a Discord thing, really? I just closed Discord because it was trying to auto start and it seems okay again. That's weird. Probably unrelated to our other issues. I have reset this system several more times since the last clip and it is firing up no problem every single time. We haven't run into that issue once yet after removing the Expo setting. Now, I don't want to just leave him without Expo, like in general, or any sort of like fine-tuned frequency, especially for his DDR5, because AM5 will benefit greatly from faster memory. So what I'm going to do is incrementally up his frequency for his memory and then try to tweak his timings a bit. I'm not great with manual memory overclocking, so it is a bit of a shame that like just the default Expo setting seems to be giving him problems. But I'm going to try to fine-tune that. I'm frankly just going to be referencing some tutorials online because again, it's not my strong suit, and see if we can get them as close as we can to that advertised 6,000 megatransfers per second speed. Something else we can do in the meantime is take a look at his BIOS build date. So this is in June 24th of 2025. It's a relatively modern one, but we're gonna go ahead and update this to the latest stable version to see if that helps with overclocking stability as well. Just gonna hop on over to his motherboard's vendor page. We'll go to support, and then we'll click on the BIOS tab. So it looks like the latest revision is from October of this year. We'll drag the BIOS update to the root of a thumb drive, then safely eject. Then with it installed into the back of the viewer's PC, we'll click M Flash. This will enter flash mode, so it's like a separate little UI. Then we'll select our flash drive and then click the update file. So it's gonna confirm this file is legit, and we're gonna leave this as is. We're not gonna touch anything. I always stress this. Make sure you're connected to a stable source of power. A UPS would be preferred. Don't do this during a thunderstorm. Once this is finished, the system will reset a few times. Don't freak out. Once it loads back into the BIOS permanently or into Windows, you know you are good to go. I wanna try to see if we can get Expo enabled. This is just Expo 1. There are a few different Expo presets. He had Expo 1 enabled initially, and that was what was giving us the error. So I'm gonna try re-enabling that with the latest revision here on this board to see if that fixed anything. Firstly, you can see we are now on the latest revision. Now let's see if we can just set this by default. So we'll click that there. I believe that is now enabled. And then we'll just have to click save and exit, which is, where is that? Where's save and exit? Why do they not make this stuff simple? These BIOSes, I tell you what. Where am I? Do I have to click that? Okay, I have to click the X. There we go. So Expo enabled, and let's give it a go. I'm curious if this is gonna lock up on us again. So far, so good. And just like that, after resetting the owner's PIN, you can see our memory speeds are now pegged at 6,000 megatransfers per second. That means Expo is sticking, which means that, well, we have a more stable system now than we did with the older BIOS revision.
A few moments later.
Oh, I was just about to start filming. I hope that's just as, oh no. Did it restart? Oh, it restarted. Oh no. I was thinking this was stable. Prime 95 firmware, just once more to reaffirm that Expo is sticking. Looks like it didn't like that. Now again, these are very extreme examples of burn-in tests, but I do these for a reason, because if it won't survive this, there is a chance that at some point during an intense gaming session, it won't survive that either. So yeah, looks like we're gonna have to do some manual tweaking once again. At least we gave it a shot. This BIOS does seem more stable just not stable enough to run Expo 1 with this DIMM config. So its current config, it's really not liking 6,000 mega transfers per second at 36, 36, 36, and 96. So I'm gonna do something a bit different. I'm gonna swing down to overclock, and I'm gonna try, so you can see right now, I think Expo, yes, Expo is enabled. We're gonna disable this. You can see the DRAM light is still illuminated. That's because I imagine it is training each of these DIMMs. And it just reset. I ended up settling at 5,600 mega transfers per second with pretty, actually mediocre timings and casts. I didn't want to push it, and because things have been just kind of all around inconsistent here with this hardware config, I think I'm just gonna play it safe. I had high hopes, but it doesn't seem like the latest BIOS revision has made things stable enough to extract the full potential out of this memory. And because RAM is so expensive nowadays, it's not like I can just throw another kit in. I mean, we're talking several $100s at this point, and I am running low on memory because we've already had to replace so many kits in this season alone for whatever reason. So I am just, yeah, I'm kind of at a place where I can't do much else. The system does repeatedly restart now without issue. You no longer see that weird error that pops up, and it stress tests no problem. CPU, GPU, memory, it all seems to run flawlessly now. So he's lost a tiny bit of performance, but we haven't had to throw additional hardware at it, and I think that that's a better long-term solution than just trying to squeak out as much performance as possible with higher frequencies and tighter timings at the expense of potential instability down the line. Especially while gaming, you don't want your system crashing in the middle of that. So now that stability is taken care of, let's focus on some housekeeping. This obviously needs to be addressed. I don't even know why I ran the system this way. We weren't clipping fans or anything, but it's pretty rough as is. How on earth are these cables even routed? What the heck? One of these just runs right behind the fan shroud. Trying to figure out how to keep all of this away from the blades. We'll just start fresh by fully removing it. We'll wrap some things strategically around the motherboard tray. And there we are. It's now much cleaner looking up top. And as for around back, there's nothing I can do about this missing rear IO shield. This is motherboard specific. Same goes for these PCI slot covers. I don't have these for the specific case in question. But what I can do is fix the sag in this board. You can see there's a lot of play there. That's because he's missing a few screws up top. He's also missing a power supply screw. So one's missing right here, but then he's also got two others mismatched from like the generic, I think they're 632s. So I'm gonna get these addressed as well. He's actually missing several screws for this motherboard and standoffs at that. So I'm gonna see if I can get some of these wiggled in without removing the board in question. It's gonna be a bit of an annoying process because these standoffs have to sort of seat in a unique way. And then once they're in position, I'm gonna tighten them with their respective screws. Just see if I can get everything to hold in place nicely. But I changed my mind. This platform's coming out. We're gonna do this the right way. It looks like initially only 2 screws were holding in this entire motherboard. Yeah, definitely glad we're addressing this. I like to use this simple standoff tool. So it's got a Phillips on one side and then it's sort of like hex shaped on the other. This will allow us to screw in those standoffs for our motherboard all the way. So after verifying we've matching threads, you're just gonna slide it over and then you use a Phillips screwdriver to fully lock it in place. And back in she goes. Let's make sure not to snag any cables. Here we go. And now this whole platform shouldn't be going anywhere. Then we can finish things off by using correct matching power supply screws instead of those white thumb screws. Oh, I almost forgot adding a second thumb screw here for the graphics card so that it's not being propped up by just one. That should be it in terms of prep work. I think we're ready for a final power up. We'll probably reset the system a couple times as well, just to be on the safe side there. We're connected. Oh, is that a fan cable getting snagged? That there should take care of that. No more scraping from fan cables. And look at that, we've got a post. It has loaded into Windows. Let's go ahead and reset this system a couple times to be on the safe side. Doing this upside down is a serious pain in the butt. Yes, restart anyway. And let's make sure that this plays out. I'm gonna come down here to the Windows icon, click the power button. Holy cow, doing this upside down. And we'll click restart. So once more, yeah, this seems fine. It's resetting, no problem now. It's loading into Windows over and over again. Power's on without issue, and it runs burn-ins like a champ. What more can you ask for? Now, because added context never hurt anybody here, the owner tried swapping out the graphics card, tried running with no graphics card attached at all, even tried swapping out RAM, and according to him, also updating his BIOS. Now, what I'm a bit confused about is if he did in fact update his BIOS, he would have had to have immediately gone back in and re-enabled Expo only to load up and see the same symptom. So that he would have thought that updating the BIOS at that point didn't do anything and wouldn't have realized that by keeping the same Expo variable enabled, he wasn't actually isolating a potential problem. And so what I would have done is just cleared the CMOS from the start to make sure that with a clean slate and with no harsh overclocks or anything, hardware is stable. If we were running at like bare bones frequencies and the symptom was still popping up, then I would have suspected at that point we either have a defective boot partition, maybe a dying SSD, or some other hardware issue. But because we were able to eliminate the symptom by wiping said overclocks, I would say it's probably the overclock itself and a stubborn kit of RAM or the CPU that isn't playing nicely. And so the quick and easy solution, no real, like, you're not gonna see a huge performance loss dropping from 6,000 to 5,600 mega transfers per second. I mean, it's gonna be there, but like, if you're just gaming without like an FPS counter on screen, you're not gonna notice. I think that this is the best solution all around. It's the most cost-effective, definitely, and also the quickest. It's also a troubleshooting measure that you could do at home without any additional hardware. And after a bit of additional clarification, the owner said that he tried updating via the flashback feature, so without actually going into the BIOS and using the M-Flash environment. I would recommend, in most cases, you update your BIOS like the natural sort of like the normal way, where you just connect the drive at the rear and then you hop into the BIOS and update it that way. If you try using flashback, if you don't like rename the file correctly or set up the drive correctly or connect it to the precise like USB port at the back of the board, you won't get a good flash. It'll either do nothing or it'll flash improperly, have some other issue. So I recommend 9.5 times out of 10, just do it the good old fashioned way if you already have a CPU that's supported by the BIOS revision in question. So I think by doing things the QFlash Plus or BIOS Flashback, whatever MSI calls theirs, the feature where you can do it without a CPU, I think the owner was convinced that the BIOS did update. But again, you saw we were on a June revision. He thought it was a newer revision. I think he was trying to update to the same one that we ended up doing here. He assumed that the BIOS was also cleared in the process, which would be a sound assumption. That's typically what happens. You start off with a clean slate with a new revision, unless you're loading some profile that's compatible with the new revision from the old. It gets dicey. Usually I just like starting with a clean slate. So he assumed that Expo wasn't a factor when it ultimately turned out to be one. In fact, the only issue really keeping the system from running stable. Now, the one thing I haven't been able to fix is this little NVMe here at the bottom. It's kind of just sticking out and hanging. It is fully seated and the BIOS does see the drive, but it's not mounted properly, and that's because I don't have any additional standoffs for M.2s in that 2280 config. So unfortunately, it's gonna have to run as is. It's not preventing the drive, again, from functioning properly. It just looks a bit sketchy, and in transport, it could come loose. So I'm gonna bring that to the attention of the owner who might have the standoff for this board in a box somewhere. Good news all around then. The system now works. It now loads into Windows. It runs burn-ins perfectly fine. Temperatures all seem great, and the rig is actually extremely quiet, still at idle. I didn't even tweak fan curves. With the new BIOS revision, this is just like default how it runs. Maybe there's like a fan hub I'm not aware of in the case or something, but it is just so quiet. And we didn't have to throw any hardware at it. So like that's another big win from my angle, right? You know, it's not like the owner's gonna pay for anything anyway, but on my end, I get to save some additional hardware here in the office for future fix or flops. Thank you so much for watching this one. Thanks for the support. Be sure to leave your feedback in the comment section below. Did I screw something up? Did I miss something? I always read fix or flop comment sections. They are so valuable. You guys are like hawks. You see everything, and I've made mistakes where I've completely like overlooked very obvious things. So please continue to leave that feedback. It is so important to the integrity of this playlist, and it does help me learn a lot as well. I've learned a ton just by working on these rigs, being hands-on, but I've also learned so much from the comment section, which I never thought I would say, because most of the time comment sections, especially after a few weeks, they get pretty, you know, divisive. But Fix or Flop's been a great haven for all of us to learn and help each other, and I hope to continue that in the near future. Again, my name's Greg. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks for learning with me.